Hey there, welcome back. Week 44. I'm not kidding. That's not a joke. 44. So we are on the final week of the sixth chakra, the seventh card in the sixth chakra, which of course, when we look at 6 to 7, we look at the elevation. And are we ready to ascend into the issues and the power that we have created in the prior chakras into our seventh chakra? So let's take a looky look, okay, at balance, the balance card. And the actual name of the card, the fable, if you will, is Emaciated Periwinkle. And I have to, okay, full disclosure. Okay, that's my full disclosure song. So now I'll just do full disclosure. I've always had trouble with this fable. I've always had trouble with this card. You know, even as the creator, things come forward to us, and that doesn't mean we love every card. Sometimes we're very challenged with a card. And I think there's this myth that, you know, everything's easy. Well, no, I have, like, you know, when you pull a card or you look at a fable and you go, oh, I don't, well, I have the same thing. It's not like I love every one of them and I just get all of them. It's more like, oh, I've lost it. You know, when we go blank on something. So, here I go yawning. I have to tell you, it's like, you know, as I'm recording this, like 6 o'clock in the evening. It's not even like where I'd be tired, but I'm tired. Okay. So I want to take a look at Emaciated Periwinkle. Okay. So the thing about Periwinkle that's very challenging is that no matter how I tell the story, somebody's going to look bad. And and that's my opinion, right? Because even sometimes as a creator, or, you know, when I say creator, I really feel like we're given things from the creator and we get to be called the creator on earth. But the fable of balance, okay, is obviously, there's Periwinkle and he's holding the scales of justice, and there's people who are mighty mad at him, right? But something I want to say about this, and I talk about this all the time, and you may see conflicting things in my work. And one of the things I want to say about that is that, you know, when we look at the idea of Periwinkle, okay, and we look at the idea of balance, I often say, you know, the goal isn't to be in balance. The goal is to live with the idea of being out of balance and finding our rhythm with it. Because it's like a seesaw. You know, the point of a seesaw is not to be in balance. It's to be kind of like, you know, to ebb and flow. And it's like being on the ocean. You know, the ocean isn't just going to be, it's going to be, you know. And so we get to find, if you will, our energetic sea legs and stand in that, okay? So when we look at Periwinkle, 7th card, and I would be remiss if I didn't cover a little bit of the story, which is that basically Periwinkle is he's a talented local performer, and a big agent comes to town, and talent scout, and says, oh, Periwinkle, you're so talented. I want you to sign with my agency, and, you know, we're going to do big things. So Periwinkle immediately quits that small theater, gives up everything, and decides he's going to be with the big time, and he doesn't need these small time people. And of course, he hurts everyone's feelings in town. And the fable, I think really you'll want to read it because it's different. Remember that which character are you playing in it is going, you know, you may feel like you're the person who owns the theater, or you may feel like you're one of the friends. So don't think necessarily that you're the part of Periwinkle. But one of the things that I want to say about this is that when I look at Periwinkle, the story as a totality, the search for balance is almost impossible, because what he was searching for is something outside of his world. In other words, he's in this world, and what he wants is over there. And in order to get from here to there is always an energetic bridge in our lives. But in this story, it's about being here and then recognizing you could be there and giving up everything in this space to be there. And yet there's a natural path that gets taken to get to where you want to be. And too often I've seen people do this to themselves, where they take on the idea that, you know, and I remember when I lived in Los Angeles more than any other time, you know, I'd be in these classes and people would be like, yeah, I'm living in my car right now to write my screenplay. And once I sell it, then I'll get a place to live. And it was this giving up everything in the here and now to be in a future that had not materialized yet. And sure, there's one or two stories you hear of that happening. But one of the things that this is about, this particular fable and in this particular time, is getting out of balance and forgetting who you are in order to be someone you're not. And how interesting is it that in the prior fable, we uncovered who we were. We recovered, right? It was about recovery, excavating the riches that we have. And here we find that Periwinkle has the riches, but what he's done is he has not shared the riches. He has really abandoned, if you will, the people who helped get him to that internal place of confidence and community. So one of the things you want to look at here is especially third eye. When we look at this energy of third eye, and remember, seventh card here is the one that's that final highest calling. It's going to take you up into the seventh chakra. When we look at that, the most important thing I can tell you is that if you are going to evolve into the seventh chakra, there is a thing of recognizing that if you will, the chakra evolution must come from the understanding that you can't just erase your past to have a future. And a lot of times, this is what I see people trying to do when they come to me. Well, you know, I hated my parents, I hated my family, I hated everybody, and they just don't exist to me, and I'm now going to do this. And what I found, and I worked with some celebrities in Los Angeles, and I met them, and what I found is that people who did that and did succeed ultimately had a spiral of some kind. You know, the mansion in Beverly Hills where they're sitting there and shooting up heroin because they can't get to that seventh chakra nirvana because it doesn't exist in their world, because they've cut out the parts of themselves or their life that they didn't want to look at. So they just want to ascend to the seventh chakra and live there, which of course is the God consciousness. And the only way to really get there and live there is to live in, it's almost a drug-induced state, unless you get a natural high from working out, or, you know, there's ways we get endorphins going, but we really can't live in the seventh chakra. We can experience it and then come back and share it. But unfortunately, what happens in that case is that people who didn't really get the idea of that balance, of, when I say balance, I'm talking about understanding that you've come from somewhere and you're going somewhere. You didn't just, you know, get shot out of a cannon and just appear, you know. And that's important, because your past, while it doesn't equal the future, it has given you the footing to recognize who you are in the present and in the future. Because what happens in this card is you go from the present right into the future. And are you ready? Have you taken those steps? And if not, there may be ways to do it. You know, I can't tell you how many people have said to me, you know, they've come to me, they've had magnificent success, but they just don't know how to live that way. So we've had to work with, you know, working with the chakras and finding where they were in it. More often than not, it's sixth chakra issues. More often than not, it's really about recognizing that you were left these gifts from someone. You're not just fabulous on your own. You know, you have the ability to run because you have this fantastic physique that was built that way from your ancestors. So there's certain things we get as gifts that it's important we acknowledge and integrate that into our life. That way the tapestry has the gifts and the challenges and all of those pieces, because then when you get to that they're there, you are there when you're there. So the idea of balance and of periwinkle is really recognizing when you're not living in the reality of your moment. That doesn't mean, and I'm not talking about, you know, law of attraction, blah, blah, I'm talking about being unprepared for, you know, meaning he went from somebody told me something to believing it to jumping into it and giving away his power so that he destroyed the other people that really loved him all along. And so he had to go back and go, oh, how did I get so out of balance? So when you read the fable, you'll really understand what I'm saying. And this is one instance where I really had to cover the fable to get there. Now it's interesting because the focus, it says, I must create before the opportunity disappears. I want to point out to you that there's a very strong, there's actually this, one other fable has the exact same quote, and it is, wait for it. Oh God, I want to say it's the, grape, brain. Okay, so I'll look for it, and then, oh, blueberry, blueberry. It is, here it is, workaholic. No, it doesn't have the same thing. It says, while I worked, my life happened. Okay, I think at one time it was very much the same. And so I have to say, I must create before the opportunity disappears. So he's desperately trying to jump into the future, and he's not there yet. And one other thing I want to say about that is I can't tell you how many writers I've encountered where they said, my book is brilliant, I want to submit it. And I'm like, it's not ready. And they go, it's ready, I've done it, and it's been channeled, so it's ready. And they send it out, and they get, you know, what do you call it? It doesn't get published. And they say, but I know it's brilliant. And the thing is that sometimes you have to really get that this is an important step of knowing where you are with your talent, knowing what needs to be done to get you to that next place. And the message of the week is really, I want to say, it becomes a state of panic because you're really trying to fluctuate between third eye and the seventh chakra. And what's happening here is the question comes, am I ready for this? Are you ready to make this shift? So, message of the week, there's a sense of urgency to this fable. Periwinkle is sure that the life he could have is better than the one he has. He gives up the support and love of the people around him for the sake of the fantasy. He's not yet developed his craft, yet he naively thinks that he's ready to step into the limelight. And the thing is that the people who I've experienced that are truly gifted and really have, I want to say, kind of, and I hate to use the word again, balance, but some kind of idea of how to live with their talent, with their family, in their life, those people really understand that they are offering the gratitude and the recognition to their family and saying, well, if it wasn't for my mother, cousin, uncle, husband, kids, dog, whatever, I wouldn't have this opportunity and I wouldn't be in this place. And they really recognize and honor the people that helped get them where they are. Because the thing is that what happens sometimes is when people are trying to achieve something like this, creating I want to say an artistic career, they want to just run over it to get there, and they forget that it's the relationships that get them there. So how prepared are you to acknowledge the relationships, even the difficult ones? The difficult ones. That's okay. That's another course. But that is what I was talking about with life purpose divination. And I will tell you this, which is it's really about how do we let people off the hook? How do we integrate who we are into this? Because I feel that life purpose divination is the preparation. It's everything that from where you are now to take you there and get you comfortable in that place so that when those things materialize, when those things manifest, you're going to know how to live that life that you say you want to live. Because right now, you may not know how to live it, which is exactly what happened with Periwinkle. So let's take a look here because, again, the fable is Emaciated Periwinkle. Tori's tip. Remember that nothing happens by accident. The circumstances in which you find yourself are those you created, just as Periwinkle is responsible for abandoning the people who helped him get the opportunity to live his dream. Periwinkle lacks emotional maturity. Notice how this may or may not resonate for you. And I say resonate, it doesn't necessarily mean, as I say it resonate for you, that it means you're doing it. It means that you might recognize where you've come from and how much you've grown and how much you've changed. And recognizing that perhaps even on this 44-week journey so far, you have evolved. And the other thing I want to say to you is, what you skip stops you. It always does. And I've never found that to not be true. I have tried to take so many shortcuts and I've gotten screwed. I do. So one of the things I've recognized is that, especially with, with how I'm dealing with my life now, I'm finding that being able to say to people, hey, I don't, in a sense, I don't mean to periwinkle them. I'm not meaning to run over them. Sometimes I don't recognize that I do it. And being able to have that awareness and say, I think I'm doing this. And so I really want to share with you that I think that's what's going on. And I want to change that behavior. So, that's the awareness. It's not that I don't ever do it. It's not that I don't ever forget people. It's that when I do, I remember pretty quickly and I make those amends fast. And that's the difference, is that, when we see it, we promptly shift it. We promptly correct anything that has taken us off our path. That is the maturity that happens as we go on this journey and grow together. I'm gonna look at, wait for it. Now remember, this is our final week in the sixth chakra before we go to 7. And in the 7th chakra, you're really going to start looking at you're going to look at the first chakra, that is a universal consciousness, that is, I believe, those 7 tools that give you individual energetic states to step into and change your life. But here we are still kind of grappling with, what do I do if I don't know how? And what happens when you don't know how, you don't get behind the wheel of in the cockpit of an airplane and try to fly it. You don't. If you didn't know how to fly a plane, I think the last thing you'd try to do is get it off the runway. And that's what we do when it comes to our creative efforts, or sometimes our lives or relationships. We try to get in that cockpit and get it off the ground, rather than say, I think I need to learn some flying if I'm going to do this. And the other thing is, I don't want to fly. I don't even like flying. So I'll leave that to somebody else. I'm going to let someone else have that gift, and I'm going to be grateful they have it. So that's the basic idea of that. Okay, so let's take a look at the first impressions here, because I think that's super important. I've been using super important a lot. First impressions, it's a mistake to assume that life will be instantly transformed once we get what we want. When a much anticipated event actually happens, how do you experience it? Do you ignore those who've been there? Or do you celebrate with them? Set your intention this week. At the end of the fable, Periwinkle realizes that he must go home and repair his friendships. He does this not to further his career, but to regain his happiness. This week, think about the part of you that would give up everything for a dream. Set your intention to start thinking about ways of incorporating that dream into your life. And that's something that, even as a woman, as we look at those things, it's like, I know women who'd be like, I'm giving up everything for this guy. And it's kind of like, the idea of integrating someone into your life and sharing your life is the power. And that is what this is about, integrating your talent, your experience into your life. And sometimes it's a hard journey. Sometimes it's long and difficult. So I want to bring your attention to, I wanted to look at this. In the solo exercise, and again, this is the group activity, Thursday, make a connection. And I want to say, by the time we got to this, as we were working in our fable team, one of the things that happened here is it broke up into solo versus group, because there were some people who really wanted to do these exercises internally on their own. And so they had the idea of being, they wrote up they did their exercise and brought in the results. And so there were those of us who wanted to do them on the spot, so we did a group exercise. And a lot of times the people who did the work on their own and brought it in would do the group exercise with us as well. So as I say that, look at both the solo exercise this week and the group activity, and I think you're going to find some keys, some ways to uncover the patterns with which you've used in the past to eradicate the future. Because when we abandon our past, we really, it's very hard, is what I'm trying to say, to leave a legacy when we can't acknowledge the one we've been left. And I will leave you with that thought. I will see you next week in the first week of the 7th chakra, and we begin the countdown of the final 7, actually 8 weeks of the year. And I will see you next week. Have a really blessed week, and make sure that you read the fable, and then when you can, please comment below. Let us know what exercise you did and what came forward to you. Was there something specific that hit you about this conversation or the fable? I'll see you next week.